Okay, I don't feel bad that I didn't unmute myself because Dr. Hill didn't do it either. So, and he's fantastic. I hope you all got to see him this morning. Welcome to the Effective Communication Strategies session of our conference. My name is Kathleen DiMasi, and I am an Alzheimer's Association volunteer. It is my favorite job title. I spent many years of my life caring for and helping to care for my father, who had dementia, and my mother, who had mixed dementia with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Behind the scenes, but always front and center of these programs, of the support groups and the community education that the Alzheimer's Association presents to New Mexico, is Alexis Ramirez. She will be running the slides for us today, and she is the program volunteer manager for New Mexico. And as I said, always front and center in our successful programs that we have here. So our first slide that we will look at is what is communication? And you can, there we go. We'll be looking at communication, and by the goals of the program today, there won't be a test though, so take the deep breath. But we will be talking about the communication changes that take place, decoding. We don't have the secret decoder ring that we used to get in the cereal boxes, but we have some strategies for decoding those messages and identifying strategies to connect and communicate at each stage of the disease. So as we think about communication, and you can move to that next one, we're going to talk about all of these in our discussion of communication in the world of Alzheimer's and the journey that you are on as a caregiver and the journey that the individual is on as an individual with dementia or Alzheimer's. The next slide is about communication changes that happen throughout the disease. And we use these 3 stages to describe the stages and the progression of the disease. So the early stage or mild, the individual is still conveying thoughts and feelings through language. They're able to make decisions about future care. In the middle stage, the individual is relying more on tone of voice, facial expression, and body language. They continue to need emotional connection. And in the late stage, they continue to need emotional connection. We all need emotional connection, regardless of the stage of the disease. The individuals in the late stage, though, may have more difficulty communicating with language, so they use body language and the 5 senses to connect with you and you to them. We'll talk about these changes in more detail now, starting with the early stage, communicating in the early stage. On the next slide, you'll see that the changes, they have difficulty finding the right words. You'll hear whatchamacallit and thingamajig a lot more often, taking longer to speak or respond, withdrawing from conversations. And that might be because they are embarrassed of those inability and the difficulty in finding the right words, or it is just too much to process and it's becoming more challenging for the brain to process the conversations, or could be a combination of both. And the individual may start to struggle with decision-making and problem solving, such as what to make for dinner or how to delete a program on the DVR. Those kinds of things become more challenging and more difficult. Individuals might respond more emotionally or react more emotionally than they've done in the past. Denial is common at this stage for everyone, for you as the caregiver, for the individual with Alzheimer's, for other family members and friends. So the more communication, particularly at this early stage, about your feelings is more helpful as the stages progress. The next is a video, then we'll hear from one of the association employees. Okay. There's no sound, Alexis, so.
Sorry about that. Let me fix that real quick, guys.
Okay.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
And what I would add to what she has said is that you may want to suggest different settings. Would you like, when it's just you and me, would you like me to let you take your time and find the word? Because there's no rush, there's no timeline or deadline. Or when we're with other people, though, when we're out in a social setting, would you like me to go ahead and fill the word in? And so the different settings may dictate how the individual answers. Keep your sentences clear and straightforward and short. The way I like to think about this is speak with periods, not with commas. For example, it's a beautiful day outside today. I just absolutely love fall. It's so pretty. It's all the colors are changing. Isn't it your favorite season? You have given so many different thoughts. You've talked about colors. You've talked about weather. You've talked about temperature. You've talked about favorite. You've talked about emotion. You've talked about fact. All of those things are trying to be absorbed and processed in the brain. So when the individual looks at you quizzically, I didn't get any of that, then you know, I need to speak in sentences with periods, not with commas. It's a beautiful day today. I love this time of year. Fall is my favorite season. And you will have those couple of beats in between, but that gives the individual enough time to process the words and speak more slowly, so they have time to absorb and process. Leave plenty of time for conversations and include the person in conversations that affect him or her, including planning for the future. And I can't emphasize this enough. This is such an important part of making sure the individual knows that their voice is being heard and that they are being treated with respect as the adult that they are. There are many decisions that may need to be made, and talking about them at this stage will help both the individual and you. In the next slide, we talk about keeping in mind about not making assumptions. So there is a phrase that if you know one person with Alzheimer's, you know one person with Alzheimer's. Every person is different. So because your neighbor or maybe another family member has had Alzheimer's or other form of dementia, and so you saw how they progressed, what their symptoms were, their characteristics, you expect your loved one that you're now caring for to be the same way. There may be some similarities and there may not be any similarities because it really affects everyone differently. Speak directly to the person and ask others to do the same. Ask wait staff not to ask you what he or she wants for their dinner, but to ask that individual what they want for dinner. Ask family and friends, Don't have a family member come in and say, well, how is he doing today? Ask him how he's doing today. Again, you're wanting to remember to respect the individual at all times and treat them as the adult that they are. And their sense of self is still there. And the sense of self will remain throughout the course of the disease. If they were introverted before, they will continue to be introverted and extroverted or artistic or musical, whatever the characteristics are that make them who they are. Laugh together. Be honest and laugh together. Stay connected with each other. There are many things that you can do. I'm a huge fan of a gratitude journal. So you can start a gratitude journal at this stage and enjoy writing down what you are grateful for in that moment, in that day, and find humor in something all through the day. The next slide shows communication in the middle stage. These are the changes that you will start to notice in the middle stage. Again, increased difficulty in finding the right words and more increased than from the early stage. Using familiar words repeatedly, and this also means asking repetitive questions. Using their native language when they haven't used it in the past very often. They may start to use it more often now. Speaking less frequently, difficulty following television program or reading comprehension, those kinds of things. These are changes that you will start to notice. But as you see at the bottom of the slide, it's so important to consult a doctor if you notice major or sudden changes. These may be medication related because of the brain processing chemicals differently now. So you may see something that is completely changed and sudden, and you want to talk with the doctor about that. Or a urinary tract infection can have tremendous impact, interestingly enough, but it really can have quite an impact on the brain. So again, definitely consult a doctor if you notice major or sudden changes. Beverly is a caregiver support group facilitator, and we'll watch this video now.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them in their process.
Important words to remember, and patience is a skill that if you don't think you have much patience now, you will have much more patience than you ever thought possible. To connect with the individual in the middle stage, approach them gently. Approach from the front and cue them. Say, hey, Dad, it's your favorite daughter, Kathleen. That way, and by the way, I was the only daughter, so, but that way you are, cueing them as to who you are, and you're smiling, you're conveying warmth, you're using all of the communication tools. Maintaining eye contact. Avoid criticizing, correcting, and arguing. And we all tend to, as Beverly said, you might want to pop off real fast, but that's going to backfire, almost certainly. And I can tell you that if you recognize that you don't always have to be right, it will help you to calm yourself as well. If they say, when are we going to have lunch? When are we going to have lunch? When are we going to have lunch? and you just had lunch an hour ago, you can say, we're going to have lunch in about 12 hours or 24 hours or 23 hours, however many hours you would like to say. There is no reason to say, we just had lunch an hour ago. Did not, did two, did not, did two. We play that game, and I can guarantee you will lose. The disease will win. So don't criticize, don't correct, don't argue. Just know that you don't always have to be right. And once you come to grips with that, it is so much more relaxing. Pay attention to your tone. If you have a teenager, or you've ever been a teenager, or you've been in an argument with someone and they say, well, so how are you? Fine. Okay, the word was acceptable, but the heavy sigh and the rolling eyes and the tone of voice all said totally something different. And believe me, an individual with Alzheimer's or other form of dementia knows exactly what you just conveyed. So words matter, but tone and body language matter even more. And take your time. Again, patience is so important. And here is Rebecca, whose mother had Alzheimer's disease.
She could sense my frustration because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, she was very old school and she said, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
To connect, again, another strategy for connection is joining the person's reality, looking at what their needs are and letting the person know that you hear his or her concerns and provide a brief answer and respond to the emotions behind the statement. So for example, hey, it's time to take a shower. I just took a shower. I'm not taking a shower. There's no way I'm taking a shower because I just took a shower. Wow, it must feel like you did just take a shower, but I need you to do me a favor. And I know it's frustrating because you know that you just took a shower, but I want to try out this new aromatherapy bath gel because I'm planning on giving it as gifts. And so I need you to let me know how it smells. And I've also been thinking that you need more privacy as you take a shower. And so I'm just going to stand right outside the door to make sure that you don't fall, but I don't need to be right in there with you. So in this example, you're thinking about maybe they're not wanting to take a shower because of modesty. They don't want you standing in the shower with them. If you get a shower seat and you get some, handrails, and if it's safe, you can have them and you're acknowledging that they would like privacy and maybe some independence. And the aromatherapy gel, if you get lavender, that will actually be answering many issues right there. It's soothing, it's calming, it's relaxing. And you're also giving the person purpose. Oh, I have a purpose to do this. I'm helping you with your gift giving idea. So that's just one suggestion. The shower issue is common, but that's one suggestion and a way to look at a strategy to join the person's reality. To connect, again, keeping it slow and basic, using short sentences, basic words, speak clearly, one person, one question. And what I would like to suggest is you keep these things in mind as we have the holidays right upon us. We have Thanksgiving dinner and Thanksgiving table, and that is in many families the opportunity to cut loose. And everybody's talking at one time, there's laughing, there's joking, the kids are at the a grown-up table, and then grandpa slams his hand on the table and says, enough. And everyone is quiet. Well, what's going on is that's just too much stimulation for grandpa to try and understand. So maybe this is the time that you have the kids' table, which is always more fun anyway. So have the kids' table and have the grown-up table be a little bit more subdued, but definitely don't, have it be like a library. Have jokes, have humor, have fun stuff, have traditions that you've done in the past. Just slow it down and quiet it down and give an opportunity for the individual to share in the conversation. Now is a good time to say, let's talk about favorite Thanksgivings. And now is not the time that you say, Grandpa, what was your favorite Thanksgiving? But instead say, I remember a Thanksgiving one time where, you carved the turkey and it was like the best carving ever. He may remember, he may not, but that's a warm, moment for all of you to have. So just keep these kinds of things in mind as we're coming up on the holidays. Limit distractions. Obviously, let's not have the football game on in the background because, again, there's an awful lot kind of going on. Okay, the next slide. Give some multiple cues as a way to connect, providing visual cues and gestures. And here I would like to thank one of the wonderful members of one of the support groups that I am involved with. She had a wonderful idea of something that she and her daughter put together for her husband. And that was a book with pictures of some of his favorite foods in the binder that they made, so that when she said, do you want, what would you like for dinner? She could show him pictures of mac and cheese and meatloaf and a hamburger and, spaghetti. And he could, if he was having difficulty verbalizing, he could point to the picture so that it didn't become well, I want me. And that's interpreted to be meatloaf when in fact he meant mac and cheese. And that's not what ends up on the placemat. So, I thought that was an outstanding way to, help the communication and give some visual cues, is having that binder of pictures of some favorite food. Having photo albums that you now tag with your names. This is, your mom, or this is your son, or this is your daughter. That helps the individual look at the picture and then say, oh, okay, yes. Now that becomes, more clear for me. Now might also be a good time that you start to have some gestures, you say, I love you with this or with this. My mom and I used to pat each other's faces. We did this, for years and years. But as she progressed further than in Alzheimer's, it was a gesture that was sort of the secret code between the two of us. So start those gestures. And if you already have them, include them in many of your communications. Put answers into your questions. Now is not a time for multiple choice. What do you want for, are you hungry? Do you want lunch? And what do you want? Now, so open-ended questions aren't good. Now is a good time to say, how about ham or turkey for lunch? And you give enough time. Oh, no? Okay, how about turkey? We had ham yesterday, and move on. Again, to connect, and one other thing that I want to say from the previous slide is when you are giving enough time, that's decoding time. That's getting out, he's or she are getting out their decoder ring and decoding it in their mind of lunch, ham, turkey, okay, processing that. So you're giving enough time. Responding empathically and reassuring the individual. joining their reality. Again, as I said, you don't always have to be right. So when my mother thought I was her mother, there's no reason for me to correct her. And in fact, I thought that was really pretty sweet. If she was confusing me with her mother, I felt very honored by that. She was extremely close to her mother and adored her, and I adored my Grammy. So that was kind of a nice thing. Now, I focused on her feelings and not the facts of that scenario. When, on the other hand, mom thought that I had not given her medication, and she was very disciplined always and organized in her medication management. And so when she thought that I had not given it to her, that is when I needed to join her reality and say, I am sure that's really incredibly frustrating to you because you are so devoted and diligent about taking your medication on time. But we always take it at 7 o'clock because that's what's required. And it's 7:30 now. And so I know that we did that at 7, but what we're going to do, because you bring up a good point, is we're going to start writing it down, and then we can make a check mark that we've done it so that we both feel very comfortable. And so now, because it's 7:30, let's go watch, some television. So at that point, I was focusing on both her feelings of frustration and nervousness, but also the facts of, yes, we have done the medication, but I hear you, I understand, and here is a way that we will address this issue for the next time. So validating and redirecting the person, it depends on the situation. In late stage, you will notice that the ability to verbalize is quite diminished. And what you want to do is continue to bring respect to each conversation, make sure that the person feels safe and happy to the degree that you can, and listen for expressions of pain. Because again, this is not a time where you can say on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain level? That will not be understood. But if someone is cold, this is sort of the universal, body language for I'm cold, or my head hurts, oh, your head hurts. And even if you say, does your head hurt? They may shake their head no, but with a continued furrowed brow, rubbing on their head, you can assume that and then take the necessary steps that you need to, and using all 5 senses to communicate. So this next video is one of my favorite ones and usually has me a little teary-eyed. So go ahead.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the 5 senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. My husband noted to me recently, he said, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
Okay, see, yeah. Connecting through touch, as Sandra said so eloquently, holding the person's hand, brushing their hair, stroking the arm and back, giving lotion hand massages, all of those things are so important to do. Patting on the face. Connecting through sight is the next one. That is so important to do. Looking at pictures, my father and I would sit outside and I would get the bottles of bubbles and blow bubbles in the air. Sometimes he would do it too. Other times he'd just watch them, would talk, or would be quiet together. But it was being outside and doing something kind of fun and gentle and quiet and pretty. Connecting through Sound is the next, and I would strongly recommend that you look at listening to familiar music. So we're on that next slide, Alexis. Listening to familiar music is, I think, one of the most important ones on this slide, which is very powerful. Music is found in all parts of the brain. So as one part is deteriorating, music is still found in other parts of the brain. So singing, humming, listening to music, and I would strongly recommend for both you and the person with Alzheimer's that at every stage of the disease, you listen to music at some point every single day. Reading books or audio books, also very helpful, but I enjoy reading to individuals. I think that that can be extremely helpful and you know, something that the individual can appreciate. And connecting through smell is the next. You know, some of these definitely, as people age, the sense of smell is definitely diminished, but some of these are very strong smells. So it might be something very helpful to the individual. Connecting through taste is also good if there's something that the individual really likes, and that the smell can be, you know, like the bottom bullet, you know, apple pie or chicken soup. The most important thing to remember here, though, on that slide, we're on the next one, is that the ability to swallow becomes diminished. And so you need to be very careful that what you're giving can be swallowed easily. And then communicating in all stages of the disease. In summary, the next slide is joining the person's reality. You know, that will help you as well as help the individual. Understanding and accepting what you can and cannot change. This is the serenity prayer. For those of you very familiar with that, you'll repeat that to yourself over and over again. And I would like to tell you there is an article in the Washington Post magazine written by Tracy Grant. It was just published at the end of October, just a few days ago. It's called The Truth About Caregiving. Your determination is not enough. It's an excellent essay, excellent article. Remember that the person retains a sense of self despite the losses of the disease. So you need to always demonstrate respect and connect through feelings. Try to decode the person's communications and recognize the effects of your mood and actions. As some of you know, Maya Angelou is a very favorite poet of mine, and she said, "I may not remember the words that you said. I may not remember the things that you did, but I will always remember the way that you made me feel." So keep that in mind as you are interacting with your loved one. And help to meet the needs while soothing and calming the person. And what I tried to do, one of the individuals in one of the videos said that she counts to 3. What I would try to do is, and still do now in times of frustration, is to think very consciously, inhale peace, exhale love. And it really works. And for those of you who are the huge fan of Carolyn Scott, as I am, you will know that breathe is the definite word of the day and every moment in the day. So think of Carolyn and breathe. Think of me, inhale peace, exhale love. The next video, we may not have time for. Alexis, you tell me. I think we did have time, I guess.
Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Fazio is the Director of Special Projects, and he is going to talk about the importance of your care, the importance of caregiver care.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So, for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with disease and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
These are the ways that we can help. We want to be and are a part of your care team, your network of support. These are all areas from our website, which is, just incredible, to the training, online education, as well as in person, the helpline, which is available all day, every day. And I can attest to that. They're just wonderful on the helpline. All of our resources, obviously I'm biased, but all of them are wonderful. And I'd like to take time, we just have a few minutes. Alexis is keeping us honest on time, but if there are questions in the chat, Alexis, that we can, try to address. And there's Alexis for everybody.
Hey, everybody. Yes, so we are going to go ahead and take any questions that you may have. You can include those in the Q&A chat box and we can address those. I know some of them have come in the chat portion, so I'll address those first. And then, of course, if you have a question, go ahead and put those in the Q&A portion of the chat. So I do have one that did come in, so I'm just going to look back here. We do have a question. So how do I get the proper care for my mother and resources to better help with her?
I would, my first reaction is to go to the website, to go to alz.org. There are many descriptions and help, sources of help in our website about how to choose. Do you want in-home health care? Do you want someone coming in to give you some respite for yourself and to get, help for your mom? Would it be better for her to be in a residential facility? That is certainly, and that is covered on the website, the advantages of going to a residential program. And certainly the education classes that we offer, the community education, both online and in person. We talk about many of those factors, even just these effective communication strategies helps you to provide better care. So start with alz.org and also call the helpline as well. I would say use all of these resources.
Thank you, Kathleen. Another question, how do you handle irritability and persevering thoughts?
That might be, first you take the deep breath and you look for that motive underlying the behavior. Every action has a reason. Every behavior has a reason. Thank you to Bonnie Zeiler, who is the director of the memory care facility at Genesis at Northrise, for letting so many of us caregivers understand that maybe the repetitive question is because they want to be a part of the conversation and they don't know how to phrase a question, or to phrase a comment. But if I ask a question, then I'm getting attention and I'm getting, I'm having dialogue with you. So if there's a repetitive question and you've answered it, you might want to consider, is there something else going on? Would the person like to have some just conversation? And that, if you start to have conversation, will lower your irritability level because we're not on that same question anymore, and will make the individual feel included and part. If that's not working or that's not the case, then again, look for what's the underlying reason and, see if you can distract or deflect. I kind of use an Oregon versus New Mexico. If the individual, your mom is saying, I live in Oregon, and you're saying you live in New Mexico, let her live in Oregon. Don't be upset about the fact that she thinks she lives in Oregon. Let her live in Oregon. That's okay. So also looking at, are you reacting because this is the way we are trained to react? And we're also trained not to lie to our parents. So underlying, sort of motivations for both of you. I'd take some time to look at those as well.
Thank
that
you,
helped.
Kathleen. We have a couple of more questions. So I have one in the chat. This might be covered in another workshop, but what is the process of getting a diagnosis? My mom's personal doctor has given her a mini test and said a specialist couldn't do much better. So, and she's 92 years old.
Okay, I would suggest that if I'm assuming that this is a primary care doctor, and I would suggest, thank the doctor very much, and I would suggest that you seek the opinion of a neurologist, because there are many different cognitive as well as other kinds of tests that are non-invasive that can help with the diagnosis, and getting a diagnosis is very important. So it makes a difference in future medication, and she's 92. That doesn't mean that there isn't one of the medications that couldn't help. So I would suggest go ahead and seek out the assistance and the opinion of a neurologist.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathleen. We have a question in the Q&A. When is it best to let your loved one know that you notice the memory problems? When I tried to ask mom about how she says her memory it's fine, it'll always come back when I don't see it the same way that she does.
The best way is to, take, and again, I think you can find a lot of the answers in the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, which is a class that we offer, an education program that we offer. And in that, we talk about how to deal with that conversation, how to, deal with the resistance, how to deal with the actual language that's used, how to work with timing and who's there for the conversation, how to deal with going to a doctor to get more information, because everybody is terrified of having this happen. And so it definitely takes a lot of diplomacy and kindness and compassion for that individual and for yourself, because you're just as terrified. So I would say sooner rather than later, and start with taking the 10 warning signs, because that class does have strategy discussion in it.
Thank you. So we have enough time for 2 more questions. One in the chat. How about dealing with negative focus on another person in the house? I'm assuming the person who has dementia is probably focusing on another person in the house that's negative. So how do you approach that?
So the person with am I saying this right? So the person with Alzheimer's is negative about another person in the house, and you want to change their focus on that person or change their opinion of that person? I'm sure. Do you think that's right, Alexis? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. She said yes. Okay. Well, first of all, you're probably not going to change soon a feeling or, their opinion. However, over time, because of the changes in the brain, that might dissipate. Their negative focus may become less and less. And, so that's sort of the bad news, good news. I mean, they may become less irritable about that individual, but it could be because the disease is progressing. Now, in the meantime, you can try to do some things. Maybe that individual is the one who, does the things that your mom or dad, I'm just going to say mom or dad, like to do. Involve that, the focus of the negative, involve that person in doing the fun, positive, good stuff. It's good cop, bad cop. Let them be the one that says, hey, I want to go for a drive. Or I've just seen, this great movie, and it's a musical and you love music. Let's watch this movie together. And, those connecting things, let that individual try those kinds of exercises that individual can be a part of.
Thank you, Kathleen. And so for our last session to wrap, our last question to wrap up the session, we have it in the chat, in the Q&A. Is there a good way to reset the person when I've lost my temper or somehow upset her?
Well, as we've said, treating the person with respect is the best way. And what do we always do, particularly, with our loved ones, is we go to them and we say, you know what, I really messed up. You didn't deserve me to get angry with you. You didn't deserve that. And I feel really bad. And I want to give you a hug and ask you to forgive me. And they may or may not. I mean, it depends, but what you can do is, give some time, let the person have their own feelings. We all need time to kind of adjust to whether we're going to accept the apology or not. So, give them some time, and give yourself some time to remember that you are first and foremost a human being. And then you're a caregiver, and then you're a daughter, or a son, and a husband, and a wife, and a parent, and a career person. You carry so many roles on those shoulders. So give yourself some kindness.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We're wrapping up the session, but before we leave you, Kathleen, is there anyone who has questions for you or would like to reach out to you? What's the best way to do that?
Why don't you email me and if you want to write it in, it's kdimasi07@gmail. And I just want to congratulate all of you and applaud you for your courage in coming today and coming to this entire conference. The more knowledge you get, knowledge is power. The more knowledge you get, the more helpful of a caregiver, but also the more help you will get for yourself. So please be kind to yourself.
Thank you, Kathleen. And yes, today's session is recorded, so they will be available later after today. So you could always come back, check out the videos, and of course, reach out to us if you have any questions. But thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.